Living in Captivity, Part 1. I tried to leave Colombia 3 times before I was allowed out of the country. If this doesn't sound like a big deal to you, you've never had to gather 5 or 6 of your wife's closest family members, and there's no point in arguing. They're all coming, every time, hitching a bus and fitting the gang plus your luggage, then battling traffic conditions for the 2-hour trip to the airport. I did this 4 times. 3 of those times we did the whole thing in reverse. And on the way back, you have the added fun of wondering how you fucked this up for everybody. 2 of those times you were able to apply the words "yet again" at the end. If prayer turns out to be something that works, I pray that there is no such thing as luck. If luck is something that is real, mine only comes in bad, mild, and cool ranch. The first time I missed the flight, in retrospect, could be considered my fault. This perhaps was my Jorge Alicia Gaitan moment, the place where I messed it all up. I postponed my flight a couple of days because we had missed time due to my eye surgery, recovery, and all the illness. This was my first mistake. My second mistake was miscalculating how many bottles of eye drop medicine I needed after the surgery. I'll stop counting mistakes at this point, but the next one was choosing the morning of my flight to acquire said eye drops. J. Loco, who was asked to drive to La Victoria to make the purchase, returned with 1 bottle less of medicine as he was asked to obtain, but 1 extra bottle of aguardiente. Wounded from a verbal gutting administered by La Lilis, he sped back to La Victoria to make the most of the seconds that were already spoken for. I smoked my long-awaited Godfather on the roof, which was a whole Dutch master cigar, not broken up and rolled like a normal blunt, instead emptied and completely filled with herb to the top, but mine was customized by a ball of opium that sat in the center. When J. Loco returns with the right amount of medicine, I'm feeling great, and we flee to the airport. Traffic is heavy and we're already late. Compounded onto this, I forgot that they had changed my departure time when I rescheduled my flight, making me even later. Still, after all this error, I make it to the airport 1 hour and 15 minutes before takeoff. Spirit Airlines had already shut the gate. There's nothing to say to any employee that bothered to listen. The angrier, more gringo we got, the more they cared less. The spirit bot that is deflecting us seemed to be saying, without words, but with dismissive action, "Sorry, gringo. You're gonna have to deal with all this third world bullshit like I do for 1 more week. Don't like it? Use your cash to buy your way onto another airline." Ha 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 ha. But I'm not one of those gringos, am I? I'm Puerto Rican, and a broke one at that. Hell's bells, woman, I don't think I cleared $30,000 last year. I had been unemployed for a long time, and I already paid to have my flight moved to this day. There was a reason I chose Spirit Airlines. Someone didn't tell their employees that their airline catered to people who lived on a stowaway budget. We're not enemies, lady. People like us. No matter where in this global society we stand, if you lose your job, you're just as much a rower in Schitt's Creek as I am right now. And I'm perceiving from your attitude that you won't lose yours if you help me out right now. But you won't. Developing world, first world, universally might makes right. Until we're all off the grid, might is money. And I'm constantly bothered how this doesn't frighten and enrage the world. The tragedy of this is that you don't have to be a millionaire to exert a baneful will over others. You can make as much money as a person you're abusing. There are hordes who align themselves with their job, implementing every wrong policy, displaying the exact callous nature that company represents, even if there's a way around it. As I look at the Spirit Airlines women across the counter again, we're not enemies, but she won't make a personal decision to help. Multiply that concept to the millions around the world who make the same kind of choices she did with me that day. Apply it to more important things than me escaping vacation. Things like healthcare coverage or housing. Then maybe you won't question why I want to spend the rest of my life floating away from it all, whether it be in an actual space capsule or whatever drug I'm currently using to leave. There's nothing that could be done. I had to pay to move my flight to the next weekend. I was visibly upset. Wonder expressed that I was making her family feel bad. Everybody, including Wonder, was excited to have me around another week. I couldn't help it. It wasn't her family's fault, but after 2.5 weeks, I wanted to be home already. I faked it as best I could. During this time, I wrote, I explored, I smoked. When I'm homesick, I watched Tripoli fall into the hands of the rebels on CNN International. New York City had an earthquake and shook at my absence. Galaxy Quest, Men in Black, The Dark Knight, all dub on Canal Space, South America's answer to Spike TV. My flight was rescheduled for Sunday, August 28th. The night before, CNN International announced Hurricane Irene had been born and was fulfilling its destiny as it wreaked havoc in the Bahamas. I slept with confidence, knowing the hurricane wouldn't do anything to my steadfast city. When I awoke, I used the media's eye to peek in on New York. There were evacuations, the shutting down of the transit system, and the closing of all area airports. Unprecedented. The storm had just left the city, so we didn't know if airports would be open by the time my flight was due back. Because of wind conditions in Bogota, Wonder's landline was down. The website only offered a toll-free number that didn't work on cell lines. The only way to find out anything was go to the gate at Spirit. J Loco and I got back on the bike with my papers and ticket to hold my seat on the plane before it was given away. The rest of the family followed on the bus with my luggage. When I get there, the lines are outrageous. I take my place while J Loco impatiently scouts the scene. He disappears for some time, then comes back explaining that he's convinced one of the people at the counter to speak to me ahead of everyone else. Suddenly, we're committing espionage. When I get there, the lady seems nervous and regretful to speak to me after she had agreed to. In her rushed explanation, she tells me that I could take the flight and gamble with the weather in Florida, the location of my layover. The airline would not cover the cost of a hotel if flights were still grounded by the time I arrived. Or I can change my flight for free. The only flight available was for that Friday. It was Sunday. 5 more days in Bogota. I can't afford 5 more days, but I could afford a hotel in Fort Lauderdale even less. I look back at the line and J Loco telling me in Spanish to take the deal. 5 minutes later, I leave the airport with a newly printed ticket. The family en route was diverted back into the house. A barbecue on the roof was decided. I decided I'm being depressed.